Thursday, 2 September, 1852. Father got very upset with me today. I killed a fawn while we were hunting. I hadn't been able to tell it wasn't full grown. Father didn't know how bad I felt about it and scolded me there in the woods. He dragged me by the collar over to where the fawn had fallen. It wasn't dead yet, but I could see it wouldn't be long. Father shot it in the head so it wouldn't suffer. He made me stand there and look at it for the longest time while he told me what a waste it was to kill an animal so young. "There's nothing in this world I hate so much as waste." He kept on like that for a while, but half of it I didn't even hear. I just looked at how small the fawn's feet were and how its eyes stared so hurtfully into mine. I couldn't help but cry. I tried to hide my face from Father so he wouldn't see that a big boy like me was crying, but he saw. He stopped yelling at me and put his hand on my shoulder in that way that only makes me feel worse. He told little Henry to get some help to bring in the fawn, and led me to the house. In most respects, John DePriest had lived an ideal life until 5 months before his 34th birthday. His parents had come west when he was a child, no older than his own daughter was now, so he'd never known the longing for city life that some people here endured. Nor had they gone so far west that he would grow up ignorant of culture and learning, though strong in the knowledge of the earth and its seasons. And when his father had recognized that his only son had more passion for bringing home and tending broken-winged birds and limping dogs than he had for rows and columns of figures, he cut John loose from his booming mercantile in Canton and apprenticed him to a country surgeon who believed what practical experience he could provide would one day be well supplemented by a university education, if, God willing, John could find a suitable benefactor. So it was that he came to Oak Shade, the surgeon's letter of introduction in hand, to ask the old man's older friend for that patronage in exchange for 7 years' work. He hadn't realized then that he would become a Jacob, and Dr. Warner an infinitely more fair-minded Laban, for by the end of that 7 years, John had fallen in love with, courted, and married the elder daughter, the most perfect woman he could ever have imagined. So, for some reason he could not explain, John felt that what had happened in the year since his birthday was his fault. He had been the one to break the charm, it seemed, by being the first to feel the unfamiliar hardness beneath the skin of Rebecca's breast, to be shocked out of his desire for her, the rationality of the physician superseding the emotionality of the lover. And he had been the one to cut her, here in this very room. The bed she lay in now was so different from the one they'd shared in their own home, older and grander, and taller, John realized when he stood beside it. He barely had to bow his head to clear the canopy as he climbed in next to her. He was certain that she would have preferred her own bed for his homecoming, as did he, with its lower frame and well-worn contours that fit them as they lay together night after night. This bed they shared now knew the curves of their bodies, but seemed never to yield to them, never to make itself intimate, nor even familiar. "Becky." He touched her arm, and when she did not wake under his hand, picked it up to stroke his palm from wrist to shoulder and back again, as though he were bringing warmth back to a child left too long in the cold. "Becky, I'm home." She opened her eyes in the slow, uncertain manner of one not quite sure she was waking, and stared at John as though at a dream figure. Then recognition came to her eyes, and then, of all things, annoyance. "I'm going to hang Annalee. She should have warned me you were coming up." That would have ruined the surprise now, wouldn't it? He kissed her where she lay, though when he came away she hurried to sit up and pushed her hair out of her face. "Yes, but at least I might have been presentable." "I've always preferred you a bit on the disheveled side myself." He smirked in his crooked way that he knew always worked on his wife until she was able to smile and kiss him back. John sighed through the kiss, but he wasn't sure why until she released him. There was a weakness in her arms that he hadn't felt before, a weakness so unmistakable it might have overcome him if he were not already determined to mark it as an effect of the laudanum, rather than any sickness that ravaged her. Rebecca did not say, "I missed you," as she might have done, had she been inclined to assign blame for things that could not be helped. Instead she asked, "Did you and Papa handle your affairs well?" "As well as we could, and Tatum brought a great many to the hospital. We had soldiers from that battle even after we got back from Christmas. These last 3 months have seen many of them die." Rebecca said nothing, only waited. "I'd rather not remember." He let go of her hand and walked to the dresser to start putting away clothes. "Your father's brought one of the boys with him as a guest. Do you want to go down later today to meet him?" "Certainly. I hate to be a recluse." "Good. And perhaps we can go outside this afternoon as well, if you feel up to it." "Perhaps. Who is this guest?" "A boy we treated at the hospital, poor fellow. He's a bit odd in some respects, but agreeable on the whole. He's alone in the world at the moment, and your father invited him to stay here until he can get back on until he's situated. I think your father wouldn't mind if it were permanent. He likes the boy very well." "Is he so very young to be called a boy?" "No, no. Force of habit, I suppose. In fact, he looks older than he is. He would be close to Tom's age." Rebecca was slow in her reply. "I see." "Suppose it's silly of me to refer to someone as a boy when he's not so many years younger than I," John said. "It just seems that most of my acquaintances these days are of the older set." He rubbed his eyes with his thumb and middle finger. "Though sometimes I feel so old I could call even them boys." He glanced up to see the reflection of Rebecca staring past his own image in the reflection of the wall. She crossed her arms in front of her, and he saw her hand move to cradle the depression where her right breast had been only a year ago. "So many things have changed," she murmured. John pulled a wrinkled collar from his valise. He fingered it, trying to smooth it out. "Did Papa speak much of Tom while you were away?" John hesitated and looked at her in the mirror. "No." He put the collar away. "Only once, when he'd worked a 48-hour shift, he had called a boy son." "I would very much like to meet the young man downstairs." Monday, 20 June, 1853. Father and I took Will riding without a guide rope for the first time today. He cried a little when he couldn't make his pony follow us, but Father told him how to slacken the reins and use his legs better. Father laughed when Will said he wanted to gamble, and told him he was too little to gallop. It never ceases to amaze me that Will can use such big words like actually and beholden, as I heard him say last week, yet he confuses simple things like gallop. When we returned, Caroline insisted that she too be allowed to ride. Naturally, Mother would have none of it. Caroline was heartbroken for the rest of the morning until I got on all fours and let her ride on my back. It is good Mother did not let her get on a horse, as she would have been thrown had she bounced up and down as she did on me. My scalp is still tender from her pulling on my hair as her reins. Though he had been privileged to ride a real animal, Will jumped on my back behind her and knocked me on my stomach. Then I got in trouble when I threw him off of me. I wonder how it's possible for a helpless little boy, as Mother called him, to cause me so much trouble.